When I say, who's the master? You say, no.
What is up, guys? Shownuff the King here, bringing you another video. This is a special video, though. This is it's Thanksgiving. It's the time for giving and then being thankful. And I am thankful to be able to have some time off of work so I can actually bring you guys some content. Because I got to tell you, it's been busy. I've been busy. You know, I'm a father. I have two daughters, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. So it's hard to find time to bring you guys content, and I'm thankful that I can actually do that today. So I'm thinking about what to actually do. You know, I've been thrown into Duel Links. I love Duel Links. I'm obsessed with Duel Links. I will continue to bring you guys Duel Links content, but I also have a lot of other passions and projects and things that I'm working on. You know, my birthday's next week. You know, I bought myself a early birthday gift, the Xbox One X. My wife is supposed to be getting me a 4K TV for my birthday, so I'll be able to sync that up with the Xbox One X to bring some great content to you guys, so stay tuned for that. But that's not what this video is about. What this video is about is one of my first loves. And one of my first loves is anime. And as you can probably tell by the sidebar, there is a lot of anime that has been a part of my life. You know, I've been watching anime since the early 90s. So, you know, what I wanted to do today is bring you guys a thing I like to call anime story time, or just story time. It's kind of, and this episode is going to be about what got me into anime, what made me an anime fan. And it's actually a very interesting story. You know, I had been doing research on this because, again, I like to go around YouTube and watch other people's videos, and I've noticed there are other people telling their stories about how they got into anime and, you know, how it helped them later on in life, which is very true, because I don't think I would be the person I am today without anime, without, you know, the structure that I had, you know, going through how I was raised and how I grew up, coming to grips with being a nerd, quote unquote, and just kind of how I dealt with that. You know, it's much different than it was back in the 90s. So let's just get into my story. So I got into anime probably in the early 90s. Between 91 and 95 are probably that prime area where I was first exposed to anime in its truest sense. Back then I used to call it Japanimation, believe it or not. And that was a term that was used, and again, even if you Google Japanimation, it still comes up, and you can still see most of that stuff that you will see if you Google Japanimation will come up in like the early 90s, because back then, that's what people called it. They didn't call it anime for short, or it was Japanimation, which was the long term for Japanese animation. That's what we called it. And again, it might be a real thing, but that's exactly what I called it. But anyway, so back then, it was very difficult to get your hands on any good anime. Like, you didn't have the same avenues that you have now. Like, now I can go on Amazon, you know, buy a video or DVD 2 days prime, and it's here at my house. Or hell, I don't even have to do that. I can go to a multitude of websites and stream any kind of anime that I wanted, and that's from what's current now to back in the day. But back then, you only had two options. One option was you could get it and rent it from a video store, either your local Blockbuster or your you know, 99-cent video rental place, or just, you know, whatever rental locations you had available to you at that time to get any sort of anime. Or you had the second option, which is the option that I use the most, was that you had to kind of find a connect that can get you that plug. You know, you had to find a plug. And that's kind of how I take that back. There was a third way to watch anime, and that was TV. Now, what you could get on TV, again, was very limited. I mean, you could probably, and when I'm talking about the early 90s. So I'm talking about before Cartoon Network started airing Dragon Ball Z, and, you know, before Adult Swim, all that stuff. You know, I'm talking about back in the day where I had to watch it on Sci-Fi Channel. So, speaking of Sci-Fi Channel, let's actually just jump into what got me into anime. So, there were key moments that I remember from my youth when I'm like 11, 12 years old. And there are certain interactions and certain things that I would watch, and then it just stuck with me. Like, I remember back then, I had a couple of older friends of mine who were like, hey, have you ever heard of this thing called Fist of the North Star? They're like, this is really, really violent cartoon. Because again, back then they didn't really call it anime; they just called it a cartoon. Because again, to us back in the '90s, cartoons were Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We had X-Men, and like they didn't really have you didn't see blood. Like, so back then they were like, yeah, this guy's name's Kenshiro. He can just like touch you and your hair would explode. And I'm just like, again, I'm like 11, 12 years old. I'm like, cool. I'm like, someone's head is exploding. I gotta see this. It was almost like Prohibition, or like back in the day where, because again, just to get your hands on one of those movies was next to impossible. And of course, I could never tell my parents about it because again, I'm 12. I'm like 12, 13 years old tops. And there was no way I was going to be able to get past them. Hey, I'm going to watch this movie called Fist of the North Star where people are getting touched and, their heads are exploding and blood is going everywhere. But I got my hands on it and I watched it, and it was just like an eye-opening experience. Like, it was almost like someone turned a faucet on and it was just like, give me more. So I made it my mission to seek out anime in its forms and just consume it, revel in it. It was just that was my mission. So Fist of the North Star was kind of one of the first animes that started it all. And then I was going to my local video stores. We had a Blockbuster that was right down the street. And one of the very first movies I was able to rent was Guyver Out of Control. And again, every anime that I'm going to talk about is in the sidebar, as you can see. So feel free to Google it for the younger people who might be watching this video. You've never heard of it. These are Shonuff recommendations, and all the videos that I'm going to be talking about still hold up to this day. So one of the first videos that I was able to rent from my local Blockbuster was Guyver Out of Control. It was it was adapted from the original manga. And the short and sweet of it is this biotechnical weapon that attaches it to its user, almost kind of like a parasite, and it basically turns him into a bio-boosted warrior. And again, it was violent. They had these things called zoonoids that they would cut up, and there was this awesome fight scene where the main character's Guyver was going against this other female Guyver, and it kind of had like, and again, this is just how immature I was back then. There's this scene where the Guyver armor takes control of her, and it almost has like this hentai-esque scene where the tentacles come up and it go up inside of her and then transforms her from the inside. And again, back then, and I'll do a separate video on how I got into hentai, so because I think that's actually pretty funny as well. But again, that's a video for another time. Anyway, let's stay focused. So that was Guyver. Another influential anime that I watched over and over and over again, and I actually probably still have the VHS somewhere. I'll dig it up and maybe I'll do like a Lost Relics video as well. But anyway, so that was Guyver. So another later on movie that I got to watch, and I actually discovered this one on the Sci-Fi Channel. So let me paint a picture. And again, you guys that are from the 90s, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. On Friday nights basically it was Saturday morning, very early Saturday mornings, Sci-Fi Channel would play anime. It would probably be like in that 3 to 4 a.m. slot, and they would throw in an anime movie. They would throw on Vampire Hunter D constantly. I remember watching Vampire Hunter D multiple times, and I can't remember what they called it on what they called it on Sci-Fi Channel. I think it was called Anime Zone or something like that, where they would play 1 or 2 anime movies, but again, it would be at that obscure 3 to 5 o'clock window where they could avoid having to deal with the FCC issues and people losing their shit, because again, only adults or kids who were staying up past their time to watch it would actually see it. So that's how I got introduced into Vampire Hunter D. And again, to this day, the anime is definitely dated because I think it came out originally in Japan in the the late 80s, and then I guess we didn't really get it until like the early 90s in the States. But again, it's about this vampire who has this gigantic Sephiroth long sword, and he was a vampire hunter, and he kills Dracula. He has this hand that talks to him that could suck up souls and like suck up other monsters. It's just a great anime. Definitely check out Vampire Hunter D. Also, one of the really really cool animes that I watched back in the day, and for some reason it's just stuck in my head. It's Project A-ko. Project A-ko was an anime where it almost was kind of like Sailor Moon, but was not like Sailor Moon. Now, I watched Sailor Moon, and I watched, Ronin Warriors when it was on the Cartoon Network. Like, that stuff, I watched all of it. Little known fact is that before it aired on Cartoon Network, Ronin Warriors did air on another channel, and again, but it was like disjointed, so you didn't really get to finish it. And that was kind of the theme. Like, you never really got to watch a lot of anime in its exact order because things got switched around so much. But again, that's in the 90s. That's, you just had to deal with what you had to deal with. So, Project A-ko. So Project A-ko, for those who don't know, there was three girls. It was A-ko, B-ko, and C-ko. A-ko was this girl who ended up being a princess from outer space, and B-ko was this other girl that was she was a popular girl in school, but she was like a tech nut, and she had all this advanced weaponry, and I believe they were fighting over the affection of C-ko, if I'm not mistaken. So it was kind of like this funny slash action packed kind of like anime where every day B-ko would find a way to try to fight A-ko, and every day she would get her butt kicked. And towards the end of the movie, there's this huge battle at school where B-ko comes in with her robot suit and her missile called Akageyama missiles, and it was just like, I remember watching that movie so many times that I would literally be sitting in school and I'd be playing out the entire fight scene in my head, and I would create characters in my own mind that were using those same moves and using those same fights. But again, I would just imagine my own version of that fight. Again, that's why I can still remember, because I haven't watched the movie in years. I might actually this weekend just go back and revisit it, because again, it's been a while since I've been able to actually watch it. So that's Project A-ko. Now, the last one that I'm going to talk about, no, the last two that I'm going to talk about, the reason why I saved them for last is because they are so special. They are so influential. Out of the entire list, they are the ones that had the biggest impact on me and in my general life, and that is Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, and Ninja Scroll. Let me tell you. Let me start with Street Fighter 2, because Street Fighter 2, again, like I said, back in that day, you weren't really called a nerd or a geek or anything like that. You didn't really classify it like that. Like, geeks back then didn't watch anime. It wasn't really a thing. It didn't make you cool, but it didn't make you a nerd either. But people knew who Street Fighter was. Like, Street Fighter was that game that people played on Super Nintendo that was action-packed. You pick Ryu, Guile, Dhalsim, and you played Street Fighter. So if you were cool, you played Street Fighter. That's kind of how it was. I happened to get hooked to the VHS of Street Fighter 2, the movie. Now, there were two versions. There was a rated R version, there was a rated PG-13 version that came out. And I feel bad for those who had the PG-13 version because you missed out, namely the Chun-Li shower scene. So, in the rated R version, again, there was clear differences. There was a scene at the very beginning where Sagat is fighting Ryu, and they're doing their whole battle. It was very cool. You had the robot in the distance that's gauging their fighting potential, and Ryu hits him with the Shoryuken. And in the PG-13 version, you just see Sagat fall down. But in the rated R version, you see the blood shoot out of Sagat's chest. And again, if anybody with the Capcom license or the Street Fighter brand, you're like, blood in Street Fighter, WTF? Like, you know what I mean? It was crazy. So there are many differences, and again, like, the reason why I'm bringing this one up is because that was the gateway drug for my friends. So again, back then I was the plug, because I would go to comic book stores, I would go to the video stores, and I would use my allowance, I would use my money to buy these VHSs, and I would get these movies, and then I would bring them home, and then whenever I had my friends over or my family members over, I'd be like, yo, you gotta come in my room and watch this real quick. And I would put it on, and then literally their jaws would drop, because again, no one had seen anything like this before. It was unheard of to see that kind of violence, that kind of action in something that was a cartoon. So again, the two main fights that stand out in Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, was number one, Chun-Li versus Vega in that in the hotel room, and then Ryu and Ken versus Bison at the end on the mountain. Again, I don't need to tell you about it. Google it, watch the rated R version, and see for yourself. Street Fighter 2, the animated movie, 5 out of 5. The last one, Ninja Scroll. Jubei Kimagabe. He was my hero for so many years. I mean, if cosplay was done back then, I would want to be Jubei Kimagabe. Ninja Scroll was anime that came out years ago, and again, it was the quintessential hook. Like, if you wanted to get someone to watch anime, to get someone hooked on anime, show them Ninja Scroll. I promise you they will come back. And again, it is an anime that stands the test of time. I challenge any of you to go and watch Ninja Scroll again and tell me that movie doesn't stand up, because it absolutely does. It's about a ninja in a feudal war Japan world, and it's just like these crazy characters. There's this boss named Genma, and all I need to say is, at the very beginning of the movie, there is a rape scene. It's very shocking, especially in 2017. But there's a rape scene where this guy who can turn into rocks, he kidnaps this girl, and he's like literally like licking her and like eating her out and just like doing all types of crazy stuff on her. Before he gets to fully rape her, Jubei comes in and saves the day. There's this huge fight. He has this massive weapon. It's like this steel, like javelin looking thing that he could spin around and throw like a disc. And there are just not enough words to, like, I could do an entire video about how great Ninja Scroll was. But I'm not going to do that. I'll save that for another day. So, those were the videos that kind of shaped my early goings in anime. After that, I was consuming everything. And again, I'm going to do another story time with Dragon Ball, because my obsession with Dragon Ball, as you can see behind me, we got Broly. I don't know if you can see. We got Broly, Goku, and Vegeta up there. So, I got to always represent Dragon Ball. That was something that I discovered. Now, and I'll touch on it a little bit here. Like, I discovered Dragon Ball again thanks to TV. Like, Saturday mornings, like 6 a.m., I would wake up, I would turn on Channel 20, and they would be playing Dragon Ball. That's how I first got introduced into Dragon Ball in the early 90s. Before I got to Cartoon Network, they were airing the first 13 episodes of the original Dragon Ball. And it's like, gotta catch that Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball. The greatest gift of all is to find that seventh ball. Like that, I remember the beginning song for that show, and it was so frustrating because literally it was just the first 13 episodes, and I promise you, for like a year straight, I would just watch one episode a week, and it would always stop right when Goku had his tail cut off with Puar, and Oolong wished for the panties, and literally after that episode, it would start right back over from the beginning, and you never saw what happened after that. So, imagine as a young kid to find this show that was awesome. Like, I'll be honest with you, all that stuff after that, I watched all of Z before I ever finished the original Dragon Ball. Like, the original Dragon Ball, I've only seen the first 13 episodes for the many years. I'm talking about after Cartoon Network had started airing the Dragon Ball Z, after I started going to the bootleg, going to my comic book shop and going to the bootleg guy who would get his own stuff from Japan, record it on his own VHS, make copies, and then sell it to me and my friends for $5 to $10 a piece. Like, again, I'll go into more details of that in another video about how I got started into Dragon Ball. But again, I just wanted to give you a little overview about how it turned into the TV thing. So that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys want to see more. And again, I want to know what you guys think. What got you into anime? Uh, Anybody that's in my age range, I definitely want to see and compare and contrast stories because again, I know how it was for me. Being that guy, like literally, kids would come over to my house and want to be like, "Hey, yo, you got that, you got that Dragon Ball, you got that, literally like I was the plug, and people would come to me because they knew I was that kid that had to connect to that violent anime or that violent cartoon or Japanimation. So, this is Shown Up the King, the one and only. Comment in the section below, thumbs up the video. It definitely helps spread my videos out there. And again, subscribe. I want to do more videos. I promise I'll be uploading more content, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. All right.